One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I am Iron Man.
I'm Pickle Rick!
I have a dream.
I am your father.
I'm Sean Spencer. This is my partner, Gus Silly Pants Jackson.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
God bless America.
Avengers!
Assemble.
That's life. That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. But I know I'm gonna change that tune. When I'm back on top in June. I said that's life. That's life. And as funny as it may seem.
What's up, human beings? Welcome into That's Life with Jacob. Listen, make sure you're following That's Life with Jacob on social media. What's the tag, you might ask? That's Life with Jacob. Super simple. Make sure you follow That's Life with Jacob on Instagram so you can stay up to date with everything I've got going on. 2022 is bringing a lot of surprising and exciting things to the podcast. You all are showing it so much love that this podcast is going to be skyrocketing sooner rather than later. So thank you for that. Follow me on Instagram at That's Life with Jacob. Now let's get into an episode for the gentleman. So, of course, this podcast is not just for the men, but it's definitely for the women, too. Because what I found out when doing research for this podcast and reading from sources and books and articles from Jordan Peterson and so many others, is I found out that being a gentleman is something that can be taught and can be learned and can be implemented later in life. A lot of what we think is like, oh, this young man was raised right, he's a gentleman. You know, a lot of it does come from how you were raised by your father, how your father taught you to treat women, how your father taught you to be a gentleman in every aspect of life. I mean, being a gentleman is not just in a relationship. I mean, look at the what's those movies? The Kingsman, right? Like those are what we would consider gentlemen. I mean, no. Gentlemen don't go around killing a bunch of people and aren't secret agents at all times. But the point is that like being a gentleman is it's a attitude and a type of lifestyle, I would say. I think lifestyle is a little strong. I would stick with being a gentleman's a type of attitude. It's a type of mindset, which then would reflect your lifestyle, of course, definitely be a big influence on it. So I think being a gentleman is more of a mindset. But when doing this, I found out that a woman can play just as big of a part in a man being a gentleman later in life when they're in a relationship together as the father did with the young man growing up. So those two things can go hand in hand. That's why, like I said, this podcast is for everybody. And it was super interesting researching a bunch of this. So first, let's just define what we would consider a gentleman. A gentleman is somebody who is kind first and foremost. He's somebody that is not going to go over the top over little things. He's not going to try and pick arguments. He's not going to try and pick fights. He's a kind-hearted individual. At number two, a gentleman is compassionate. He's somebody that feels not only for others, he feels for himself, he feels for everybody around him, and he cares for everybody around him. Number three, a gentleman is respectful. He's respectful to everybody. Women, children, men, doesn't matter. He's respectful. And lastly, he's honorable. He's someone that is, I know, big words here today, but he's honorable. He's someone that's going to take responsibility for his actions. He's someone that's going to take responsibility for the people in his life. He's going to make sure he's taking care of everybody in his life. He's an honorable individual. That's what Webster, that's what you pick a source. That's basically the four characteristics that would define what a gentleman is. Now, like I said, growing up, I was raised with a dad that taught me how to treat a woman, that told me what I should be doing. And, so doing things like holding a door for a lady, honestly, even for a guy too, but like holding a door, making sure that if I'm in a restaurant and there's people waiting for tables and there's ladies that are standing up and my butt's sitting down, my butt's the first thing that's up out of that chair, letting those women sit down. Like little stuff like that is stuff that I was taught growing up. I was taught yes, sir. I was taught yes, ma'am. I was taught, to be respectful in situations. I was taught to make sacrifices to help people. I was taught to be kind. I was taught to be compassionate. Did I always execute those things? Oh, of course, absolutely not. I mean, we all fall short here. And I definitely have fallen short. But I guess the thing that intrigued me, the thing that really got me prying around into the gentleman conversation is I watched a really interesting video. Jordan Peterson, I don't know if any of you know who he is. Amazing man. Especially if you're a young man out there, I'd say under the age of 30. He is somebody that you should definitely research. You should definitely listen to. Jordan Peterson is a brilliant man who teaches sensibility. He teaches stuff that should be taught by every man growing up. And I mean, there's a lot of things that he teaches, talks about how to be successful, talks about how to be a gentleman. And that's how I kind of got into this. Is I saw a lecture on being a gentleman. I saw a lecture on being a real man. And that's more so what I think a gentleman is. A gentleman is a real man. And so that's why I decided to bring it up. And then, like I said, diving into it, I found out how much of a role, not only, of course, our fathers played growing up, and us, being a gentleman, and if you're raised by a mother, same thing, the head of the households, but also in a relationship. Like, ladies, if your man's not really gentlemanlike, if he's not somebody who pulls out your chair when you're at a dinner, or takes your jacket and hangs it up for you, makes you a cup of coffee without you asking, goes and gets the car when it's raining, as opposed to just saying, hey, just run to the car with me, he's the one that goes out and gets wet and drives the car up to the front door, so that way you don't have to get wet, and you can get your $25 K-cups from Kroger. Like that. If you're worried, like, hey, I have a husband, I have a boyfriend, I have a fiance that doesn't do stuff like that, well, guess what? Being a gentleman is something that is a trait that can be acquired. It's a mindset that can be adapted. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, it's a lost cause. It's kind of like being nice. Like, it doesn't take much for you to just be nice. The only thing it takes is self-discipline. And that's the same thing with being a gentleman does. It takes self-discipline. It takes self-discipline to think of others before yourself. It takes self-discipline to think of your special lady in your life before yourself. And like I said, I grew up being told to do a lot of these traits and being told, the woman's on a pedestal. You need to make sure she's taken care of. You need to make sure that if you invite her out to a dinner, that you're paying for that dinner. You need to make sure that she's comfortable. She's warm if it's cold outside. That she has the umbrella over her head and you're the one who gets wet. Like, I grew up like that. But the thing is like the older I get and the more I'm out into this world, and you're in the dating realm, and you're seeing all these different people and you're seeing all these different aspects. It's wild to see how much men aren't men, how much men aren't gentlemen. I think one of the biggest problems we have in America is that we have a bunch of boys trying to have relationships. We have a bunch of boys going to work in the morning. We have a bunch of boys trying to run around and play with their friends at the age of 28 and 29 and 30, when we should have a bunch of men trying to help not only themselves, but to help in their relationship, but to help their relationship grow, but to be a gentleman, which is somebody who's honorable, somebody who's compassionate, somebody who's kind. We have a bunch of boys. And don't get me wrong, I am guilty of this. Absolutely. I am by no means above anybody. So often we're taught by our society to just be boys. And it's I'm not going to get into politics here. But the way our society pushes everything is strong, independent women, you have to be a weak man who shuts up. And that's just not the case. You need to be a strong gentleman. And we're going to talk about what a strong gentleman looks like here in just a little bit. You need to be a strong gentleman with a fierce princess. See, those two things go hand in hand. And so, like I said, so often we're taught in society, well, you men, you need to be more in touch with your feminine side. Why? When did men stop becoming men? When did being a gentleman turn into something that's feminine? Turn into something that's looked upon as weak, as opposed to something that's honorable. One of the biggest words in the dictionary that describes what being a gentleman is: an honorable man. I'll give you an example. I'm at I forget where I was. I was at a restaurant. Yeah, now I remember. Good grief. I'm trying to tell you a story and I lost my own details. But I went to a restaurant. There was a group of ladies walking in, right? No big deal. I was ahead of them. So I went and made sure I grabbed the door. I opened it up. A couple of the first ladies walked through, didn't say anything. The last lady looks at me and she goes, I don't need you to do that. Now, there's two ways I could respond to this. The first way, which is the way that I definitely wanted to respond to it, and I'm glad I didn't, because, I'm trying to be a gentleman in my life. My first thought, so I'm holding the door, and she goes, I don't need you to do this, was to slam the door shut, and or just like cut her off, walk in front of her, shut the door behind me, push past all the girls that I just let through and be like, table for one, please, because I was here first. Yeah, I was being respectful holding a door, but nah. Tell Karen behind me that she has to wait her turn. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go. I wanted to just slam the door shut. Just right in her face. But I didn't. I said, and I quote, I said, not a problem. And I said, go ahead anyways. And she gave me one of these, and rolled her eyes. And I stayed quiet. And I let them sit down in front of me. And that's not to praise me. But what I'm saying is, like, when did this become a negative thing for a man to hold a door for a woman? When did society look down on men being gentlemen? Why is it a negative thing that I'm just holding a door out of courtesy, out of kindness? Not that, oh, she's a weak woman and she can't open the door. I'm doing it out of kindness. One of the first steps of being a gentleman, by the way, kindness. Like, why is that considered a negative in today's society? Why is it man or woman? Why are they giving rude comments when you're just being kind? If you are one of those people, and I would never wish injury upon anybody. So for, YouTube and everybody that's going to try and ban me for saying this, I do not condone violence against anybody or anything. That being said, if you are one of those people and someone's holding a door and you go, I don't need you to do that, or I've got it, bro, like, and you give off that, right? They should be allowed to slam the door on your face. Maybe catch like the tip of the nose, just enough to make it bleed a little bit, or like a pinky, like just catch a pinky in the door, for being a jerk. I mean, that should be your karma. Just saying. Like I said, I'm not condoning violence. I hope that never happens. And I hope you're never the person that's just like, I don't need you to hold that door for me. But it's like, why is society preaching like, oh, you should never be kind. You should never be a gentleman. We're all strong, independent people. It's just like, it's called being kind. It's called being a gentleman. That should be normal. Listen, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a man, if you are over the age of 8 years old, hold the door for a woman, make sure she walks in before you ever think about walking in that door. I don't care if they give you a crappy comment. I don't care if she goes, I don't need you to do that. You still hold that door with a smile and say, hey, there you go, ma'am. Be the kindness in gentlemen. And you see, kindness isn't condescending. I think that's something that a lot of people get misconstrued. Oh, well, you're being kind. You're just talking down upon me. Oh, you're just treating me like I'm a child. It's like, no. Genuine kindness is caring. Genuine kindness is caring. So don't be those people that are like, oh, I don't need you to hold it. Or I had another gentleman. Stuff just happens to me, okay? Half the stories you're going to hear on this podcast are 100% true, and the people that are in my life, how crazy things can get when I'm around, because for some reason I'm around for the crazy stuff. But, a guy gets out of his car. He's got 4 kids with him. You could tell, like, this dude's just having a long day already. All 4 of them just take off across the parking lot, not looking for cars whatsoever. As far as he knows, 3 of his kids are dead by the time they get to the front door of Chick-fil-A because he doesn't know where they are. He's just calling them all. He's calling them all the wrong names because he just can't find them, Listen, I come from a household of 5 J names, so I've been called Joy, Jessica, Justin, and Jennifer 1,000 times in my life, so I understood where this guy was coming from. But so I was like, oh, I'll hold the door for him. Clearly he's frustrated. So I open up the door to get him, let him go into Chick-fil-A. And this is the time that I wasn't a gentleman. Listen, kindness went out the door a little bit. His kids rush in, and he kind of shoulder bumps me coming in the door, which no big deal. I knew he was trying to chase after his kids. Doesn't say like, excuse me, or, oh, my bad, bro. Like, shoulder bumps me, just powers through the door. And I go, you're welcome. Should I have said it? No. Lesson learned. I shouldn't have said it. And he turns around and he goes, what did you say? And this is the point where if you know me, I guess it's the ego in me. I should have just been like, oh, nothing. I'm sorry. Have a great day. I should have just shut up, walked to my car. Did I? No. I had to challenge my manhood. I said, you're welcome. To which the dude replied some very choice words. So don't be me in that situation. And I know this isn't, this is much bigger than just holding a door, but the door is just it's the catalyst, it's the stories, it's the principles that I have to go on, because this all happened to me in the last week. And it's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to talk about being a gentleman. And that's why it's so important to be kind. And kindness is caring. Kindness is caring. Genuine kindness is caring. That's the best way to put it. So there you go. First rule, be kind as a gentleman. As a gentleman, we need to be compassionate to other people. In that last situation, I should have just been compassionate. I understand he was having a rough day. I mean, he's dragging 4 kids to Chick-fil-A at 12:30. You could tell it was hard on him. Be compassionate to other people. Listen to what's going on in their life. Help out when you can. You see, as a gentleman, or as a man in today's society, and honestly, growing up, it's the way our dads were raised. It's the way their grandfathers were raised. There was no compassion growing up. You've got to be a man. You've got to just suck it up. You've just got to get over it. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. If someone would have showed our grandfather a little compassion, if someone would have showed our father a little compassion, if someone were to show you a little compassion at some point in your life, maybe we wouldn't have a bunch of angry guys running around the world. Maybe we wouldn't have a bunch of damaged men running around this world. Maybe we wouldn't have a bunch of sad souls running around this world. Maybe we wouldn't have a bunch of sad girlfriends, fiancés, wives running around this world. If someone was just compassionate enough to listen, if someone was just compassionate enough to look at what their needs are and help try and meet their needs. I'm reflecting on a lot of stuff in my life, and there's some heavy conversations we're going to have on this podcast, because I've gone through some heavy things lately. And these books that I've been reading about being a gentleman, about being a better man, about being, the best you could ever be in any type of relationship. Being compassionate is something that comes up in almost every single book that I've read lately. Almost every single article that I've read lately. You see, someone who's compassionate is someone who cares for other people. Being a gentleman is somebody who is compassionate about other people, about other people's needs. Like I said, as an example, somebody who when you're coming out of a grocery store and it's pouring rain, you run to the car, you get soaking wet, so that way she doesn't have to. You go get what, you run into the store if it's raining outside and go pick up the coffee or whatever that she wants from Dunkin'. When she's having a bad day, this also doesn't just go for relationships or for women. It goes for men too. Men need to be compassionate to each other. When your buddy's having a rough time, when your buddy's going through a breakup, when your buddy has had a rough time at work, when your buddy has lost his grandfather, when your buddy, insert whatever aspect in your life, when you know that someone's hurting, when you know that someone needs a helping hand, be compassionate. Be that helping hand. Guess what? There's a lot of funerals I've gone to where I barely knew the person that died, but I was there for a buddy. I was there for a relationship, whatever it may be. Be compassionate and help other people heal, help other people recover, help other people stand up on 2 feet, because guess what? When you're getting knocked down, when you're having a rough time in life, you would want somebody to come along and be compassionate to you. Compassionate is not being weak. It's about being vulnerable and accepting that vulnerability and letting people come along and get you, even if it's something as little as a coffee. Listen, I mean, I'm never going to turn down a large, a large iced coffee, French vanilla, cream and sugar from Dunkin' Donuts. I'll take a Starbucks if Dunkin' Donuts burns down and there's never one that's close, because Dunkin' Donuts just dominates Starbucks. But something as little as a cup of coffee, something as little as a phone call, a text message, something as little as a handwritten note. When did writing notes and taking 5 minutes out of your day and giving it to a loved one, giving it to a girlfriend, a wife, a fiance, giving it to your buddy and just saying, hey man, I just wrote you a note. There's a $5 gift card in there. I hope you can do something with it. It doesn't have to be blowing money. It doesn't have to be anything. Being compassionate is genuinely caring for the needs of others. And we've got to start doing that as a whole. We've got to start doing that, as a gentleman, we've got to start being compassionate. And you didn't have to be raised this way. It's not something that, I didn't learn it when I was young, so I can't learn it now. It's something that as men in today's society, we need to start learning how to be gentlemen. So let's start being compassionate. Let's start opening up to our loved ones. Let's start writing handwritten notes to people that are going through rough times. Let's start doing little things for people. When you're in the drive-thru this week, pay for somebody's coffee. It takes 2 seconds to show a little compassion to somebody, and you don't know how that might change their day. Being a gentleman is being respectful. I think respect is one of the probably most disrespected traits out of being a gentleman. It's right up there with honorable. For some reason, we've decided we can go through life being a-holes. For some reason, we think we can just go through life without being respectful to others. Now, there's a difference in being respectful of somebody and then people demanding respect. Those are two different things. I'm not going to dive into that. Many of you know what I'm talking about. Being respectful is yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Being respectful is respecting the people that have come before you. Respecting your dad for what he has done to put a roof over your head, put clothes on your back. Respecting your mom for all the sacrifices she makes to drive you to your practices, to take you to that piano lesson. Respect is not only respecting others and what they've done for you, but we need to be respectful of ourselves. This is men and women. I know this episode's labeled gentlemen, but it should be gentle people, because everybody needs to learn these things. You need to respect yourself. Men, you need to respect yourselves. You need to take care of your bodies. You need to take care of your minds. You need to make sure that you're not constantly putting yourself down. I'm my toughest critic all the time. People hear me and, I get smacked around all the time, saying, Jacob, will you just shut up and stop being so negative? Stop hating on yourself so much. Stop demanding so much of yourself. Respect who you are. So yeah, not only do you have to respect the people that have come before you, not only do you have to respect the elders in your life, respect the people that have been your mentors, but it starts with respecting yourself. It starts with taking care of yourself. It starts with holding yourself to a high standard. It starts with holding yourself, not necessarily just to a high standard, but to a high standard with realistic expectations. Like I said, I'm so notorious for putting such high standards on myself that when I don't achieve that, I start disrespecting who I am. I disrespect my body. I disrespect my mind. I disrespect everything that I'm doing, even if I'm doing it to the best of my ability. So being a gentleman, yeah, we need to be respectful of everything around us and everyone around us, but it starts with respecting yourself. And listen, this is where that partnership comes in. This is where your wife, your fiance, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever you're in a relationship with, this is where they need to be coinciding with you. This is where they need to have their hands on your back and say, hey, I got you. Love yourself. Respect yourself. This is where you need that accountability partner. This is where you need your buddies to help hold you accountable. Listen, Some of you honestly need to hear this, and I know I'm getting a little preachy here, and I'm never the serious type. I mean, listen, our first 2 episodes have been me complaining about Taco Bell and me complaining about movie theaters, so I'm definitely I'm definitely no expert here. But you need someone to come behind you and say, hey, man, you're awesome. You're doing the best of your ability. So respect yourself. That's the third one of being a gentleman. And lastly, being a gentleman is being honorable. Now, what's honorable mean? I know a lot of you are thinking of the same thing I'm thinking. You're thinking of Mulan, I'll make a man out of you. You know, those were honorable men. They went through it. And Mulan climbed to the top with those golden necklace things and grabbed that arrow. You know, that's what we consider honorable. You know, fighting in a war, that's honorable. Oh, well, I served in the military, that's honorable. Absolutely it is. And I am, I back the troops 100%. Yes, that's honorable. Now, for those of us who aren't in the military, we have no sense of being an honorable man, right? We have nothing to measure it by. Yes, we've not fought in a war. No, we're not police officers. We're not firefighters. I mean, hell, I was a musical theater major in college. Like, is that, I wouldn't consider myself an honorable man. And this is something that I've had to learn and something I've been researching and reading a whole lot about. Being honorable, it encompasses basically everything that we've talked about in being a gentleman. You know, it encompasses having a kind heart. It encompasses being compassionate. It encompasses being respectful. But being honorable is being honest. Being honorable is being honest. You see, so often in today's society, we're taught to just tell the little lie so that we don't hurt that person's feelings. We'll just, we'll only tell them the half-truth because I don't want them to be mad at me. Oh, well, I don't want to go help them move, so let me come up with some story on, well, my car broke down and now I can't come help you move out of your apartment. Be honest. If there's something that I truly respect out of people, it's those that are honorable enough to stand up and be honest with me. Whether they're right, whether they're wrong, whether it's going to hurt my feelings, whether I'm going to love it. No matter what, being an honorable man starts with honesty. And I wish people were more honest with me growing up. I wish more of my mentors, more of the men in my life were honest with me and say, hey, you're not doing enough to be a better man, Jacob. You're not doing enough to put in the work to get a close relationship with whoever in your life. You're not doing enough to make sure that relationship's the best it can be. You're not doing enough. I wish people were honest with me. I mean, sometimes people were honest with me, but it was more about, hey, Jacob, honestly, you're wearing red pants today? I can't believe that you're a grown man wearing red pants. Like that was the honesty I got growing up, right? Like your friends just giving you their honest opinion on how you looked that day or how dumb your hat was or whatever it may be. Or your coaches being honest with you about how bad you played. I'm not talking about the throwaway things in life. Oh, well, honestly, that top doesn't look, I mean, goodness gracious, I grew up with 3 sisters. How often was I told that my shirt was stupid? I mean, yeah, they were honest with me, but I'm talking about being honesty or having honesty and being honest with the sense of vulnerability, with being intentional with that honesty, about being honest in that relationship. And men, when did we start stopping being honest in relationships? Whether that's with a girlfriend, wife, fiance, or with your best friend, or with your family, or with your parents or your father, whoever it may be. When do we stop being honest with them? When do we start making up these situations and these lies to try and make ourselves look good? If we were honest with ourselves, we could change the world. And I'm being 100% serious about that. If people were honest with this goes for guys, girls, doesn't matter. If we were honest with ourselves, we could change the world. Because then we would honestly be able to see where we're failing in our lives. We would honestly be able to assess how we're doing in our lives. We'd honestly be able to assess the situations that we're in and how we can make those better. Honesty is so key to being honorable. They're hand in hand, genuinely. So let's make sure that we start being honest today. So I guess to sum everything up, we've talked about the 4 criterias for being a gentleman. Here's how both sides can help. Here's how men can help each other. Here's how men can become gentlemen, and then here's how we'll wrap up with how ladies out there. Like I said, this podcast isn't just for men today; it's for ladies as well. How you all can help in this situation, because like I said, doing a bunch of research, it's very much hand in hand. You need people in your life You need mentors, you need relationships to help keep you accountable. And so here we go. Men, how can I become a gentleman? Do you have to go to gentleman's school? I mean, that's a real thing, by the way. I looked that up, and it's like in Alabama and stuff like that, where like you like dress in tuxedos and you go to some weird rich old lady's house and she teaches you how to be a gentleman. I wouldn't recommend that, because that's A, super creepy, and B, no one wants to go to Alabama. And also, when you think of like being a gentleman, no one's instantly like, dude, Birmingham, Alabama, right? Just saying. If you're listening from Birmingham, Alabama, I'm not going to take it back. So that's me not being a gentleman right now. But here's how you can be a gentleman. It starts with your own accountability. Like I said, that I've not ever been perfect, nor will I ever be perfect at being a gentleman. Yes, I was raised right. I had good influences growing up. My dad taught me how I should treat a woman. My dad taught me how I should treat others. He told me to hold the door for people. Yes, that's all well and good, but being a gentleman is something that has to be worked at every single day. You have to practice kindness. You have to practice being compassionate. You have to practice being an honorable, honest man with people. And there's a respectful way to do all that. You have to practice those things. You have to practice having a kind heart. It's a mindset. So how do you train your mind? Well, guess what? There's a solution to that. If you want to learn something, if you want to be better at something, if you want to train your mind, you have to practice. You have to train your mind by reading. You have to train your mind by meditation, by prayer. You have to train your mind by respecting yourself, respecting your mind, giving yourself the time to do so. It's just like if you're an athlete, and this is probably the easiest way to put it for men to understand. If you're an athlete and you want to be better at something, you have to train. You have to work. You have to have the right mindset. If I show up to a basketball court and I want to get better at basketball, guess what? I'm going to have to, in my own mind, say, hey, today I'm going to get better. I'm going to have to, in the physical sense, show up and put in the work. I'm going to have to train. I'm going to have to work on the stuff that I'm weak at. So assess yourself, gentlemen. Be honest with yourself. One of the steps of being a gentleman, by the way. Be honest with yourself. Be respectful of your own thoughts and your own feelings. And if you want to become a gentleman, it doesn't take having to grow up in the right environment, and it doesn't take, you having to go to some school in Alabama. It takes you putting in the work. It takes you having the mindset of being a gentleman. Now, ladies, let's go to you to wrap it up. Like I said, ladies out there that, my man's not really gentleman-like. He doesn't like to open my car doors. He doesn't like to do X, Y, Z. Guess what? Demand that he does. And I'm not saying do it in a mean way, but sometimes just go stand at the car door. I've had this happen to me before where I didn't open a girl's door and she just stood there and looked at me. And for a second, I was just like, what does she want? Like, are you good? The handle's up, like, the door's unlocked. And she's just like, you're not going to open the door? Something so subtle like that instantly made me go, oh, wow. Like, yeah, as the man, I should go over there and open her car door. That was super disrespectful of me. So hold them accountable. But do it with compassion. Do it with kindness. Do it with being honorable and honest. Do it with a kind heart. Do you see the correlation here? And this is what so many of the books that I've been reading have been talking about. This is what Jordan Peterson was talking about when I was reading his book. Being a gentleman is more so like being a gentle person. It's both sides. Both sides have to have that same mindset. Both sides have to be pursuing the same thing. Both sides have to be supporting each other. Guess what? If you want somebody that's kind and compassionate and caring and that takes care of you, guess what? You've got to do the exact same thing for them. So ladies, it's twofold. Hold them to a high standard, but you can't have your man be held to a high standard if you're not going to hold yourself to a high standard. You can't ask for kindness and compassion. You can't ask for deep conversations. You can't demand that they open your car door if you're not also going to put in the same amount of work. It's twofold. In life, we need partners. Whether that's a mentor, whether that's a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. We can't do this alone. So let's be gentlemen together. Well, I know today's episode is definitely not the funniest, and I'm sure some of you are going, how do you go from Taco Bell to movie theaters to something serious like, this conversation we had today? I told you That's Life with Jacob is something that is going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be emotional. Some days we're going to laugh together, some days we're going to cry together, some days we're going to hate each other, love each other, whatever it may be. We're going to go through it all here. 2022 has a lot of big things on the way, a bunch of guests, a bunch of amazing interviews with some amazing people. So make sure you're following That's Life with Jacob on Instagram so you can stay up to date with everything I've got going on, all the new content dropping in 2022. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you love this, share it with a friend. That does more for this show than you could possibly know. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen, YouTube, hey, drop a comment, drop a like. That helps this podcast and this program grow. Thank you for all the love. Once again, everybody, I'm Jacob Courtwright, and that's life.
That's life. That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May.